basically use those lived experiences to do whatever I can to make a difference, whether that's trying to make things better, or whether it's trying to raise awareness or create change or just help someone know they're not alone. Welcome to Access All Areas, Candid Conversations on Disability. Today I am with Zoe, and we are going to have a chat about all good things, bad things, and other things about disability and how it's working in her life at the moment. So I'm going to throw over to you to introduce yourself. Well, hi, I am Zoe Simmons. I am a journalist, copywriter, editor, author, and disability advocate. I live with fibromyalgia, autism. Gosh, thanks to fibromyalgia, I'm having trouble remembering what I've even got, but lots of chronic pain and chronic fatigue things, and bipolar. And I basically use those lived experiences to do whatever I can to make a difference, whether that's trying to make things better, or whether it's trying to raise awareness or create change or just help someone know they're not alone. Wow, Zoe, that all sounds kind of just exhausting, even without any of that stuff going on. So we'll kick into the Yes.
questions.
Start off with, what do you think is the best thing about having disability or a medical condition? I mean, that's a hard question because there are obviously a lot of challenges, but the best things for me, honestly, have been connecting with the disabled community. When I first started experiencing chronic pain, I couldn't find reasons why. I couldn't get doctors to listen to me. I did tests and surgeries, and I just felt so alone that there wasn't a reason why my world just became so small with so much pain and so much fatigue. And I remember posting about it, and the disability community reached out and said, like, hey, you're valid even if you don't know what's happening with your body, even if you don't have a diagnosis. If you have things that are affecting you and, you know, they impact your ability to function and live, you're disabled and you're allowed to call yourself that. So that's been really beautiful to connect with the disabled community and find friends that get it, because non-disabled people often just don't, like, they can try, and I do really appreciate allies and the people in my life who make an effort. But you know, ableism is something that is enormous, and stigma as well. So it's so nice having disabled friends where you just get it, where you can just have that, like, warmth of, oh, hey, you know, you need to use your ability aid today, that's cool. You need to cancel today because you're too tired, that's cool. You need to use whatever you need to exist, it's just accepted. And I think that's just such a beautiful form of friendship. And even outside of my friendship, just the community alone, I found so much support and so much love. And you know, we're all going through these quite difficult things and dealing with all these challenges and accessibility issues and all the hard things that come with being disabled, but that is a very beautiful thing. And I do love that I can use my lived experience and transmute those bad things into hopefully something better, and to make a difference by sharing my perspectives and sharing these stories. So they are two really beautiful things, and I'm definitely grateful that I'm not just suffering for no reason and it's been able to actually help create change. That means a lot to me.
Fabulous. And that's the thing, I guess, it is like this unconditional understanding from the community, in the sense that, you know, it's that empathy. We get where you're coming from, and you know, as much as other people might like to be non-judgmental and open to understanding, I think unless you've literally been in those shoes, sometimes it's really difficult. And even from one disability to the other, like, I mean, you know, even sometimes from one person's individual circumstances to another, like, you may have the same diagnosis, but sometimes it's very hard to get your head around it. But at least when you experience something on that level, you do get it a bit better, which is you know, really amazing. And that's what we're here to do, is support each other, because quite often, you know, that outside pressure of society and expectations and just the way things are set up, sometimes it does make it really hard. So to be able to sort of, you know, just chill out with people that do get it and understand is, you know, it's really impactful.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we all have different disabilities and different things that impact our experiences, like layers of marginalization, for example. Like, I will never know what it's like to be a person of color. And, you know, those things are challenges, but it's important we recognize them and, you know, work out what we can do to support each other. So it's equitable and fair, and
Mm.
so we're not as impacted by all these difficult things that, yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I don't know where I was
I
going.
think the other biggest thing is, the fact that you have kind of flipped it on its head and gone, you know what? Like, this is my circumstance. And now I've got the ability to actually say, well, you know what? My story has the power to potentially help other people. And the fact that you're reaching out and you're actually sort of, actively participating in doing that advocacy work and helping to make a difference for others. I mean, that's really powerful in itself, and something that, amongst all the other things that you do, and amongst your self-care routine, it is really energy sapping to actually be out there doing that work, and sometimes people don't realize that.
Yeah, it's definitely exhausting, especially when you have chronic fatigue, which is much more than just being a little bit tired. It's literally struggling to function. Like, for anyone that might be listening that doesn't know what chronic fatigue is like, imagine it's been like 6 days and you're awake and you've had to read like a dozen giant law textbooks in a row. Like, how tired you would be then. Pretty tired. But it's also like struggling to think, it's struggling to communicate. Like,
Mm,
when I'm really bad, I can't work out how to do really basic things. Like, I can't work out how to charge my phone. I get that tired. And, people just don't realize how hard it is.
mm.
So I do like that at least it makes an impact. When people tell me that my stories have made a difference or my words have helped them, it makes me want to cry, like in a good way, but it just feels very special.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Like, I had an experience just a couple of weeks ago, and I met a family, was just at an event, and this father comes up to me and he says, "I've been watching you on social media," and he says, "My idea about what my little boy can do in his future has just totally changed." And he went and got his little 5-year-old son and introduced us. And I just went, oh my gosh, I got so teary just thinking that, the little things that you can do potentially really can help somebody else. And it's amazing. And I think that's what probably gives you and me the energy to just keep on doing it, because sometimes it is really difficult. But I think it's that capacity to go, you know what, we can make a difference. And maybe that's part of what we're here to do, in the big picture.
That's my reason for existing, as far as I'm concerned, making the world a better place, even if it's just for one person. Like, I remember I saw a quote when I was little, like, success is to know because you have lived someone else's breathed easier. And I'm like, yeah, that's just been my goal for life through writing and storytelling. But
Mm,
I really want to make the world a better place. And I know that might seem, I don't know, idealistic maybe, but naive perhaps, but I do believe we can change the world, and we are changing the
mm,
world as far as I'm concerned. Maybe slowly, but the more we speak out, the more we encourage other people to speak out too and embrace their truth and know, like, hey, you don't have to fit inside these boxes that society dictates to you. You can do what you need to do to live best, and if you can't do all the things that society says you should, who cares? If you don't want to, you don't have to.
so true. Absolutely. So yeah. And if everyone does just even something little, imagine the power behind the change in that opportunity. Like, just that little thing that we can all do differently.
Absolutely. Like, I think society likes to make us feel like we don't have power, but
Mm.
we really do. I have examples in my own life that I like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Like, for example, I had an issue with Qantas last year where they broke my wheelchair. The first time I went on a flight, they broke my wheelchair. They broke the brake, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need to fix that because a brake isn't important or whatever." I can't remember the exact wording, but they didn't deem a brake important enough. I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
wow, I hope you think that a plane's brake is important."
You would hope so.
But I just posted on social media. Yeah. But I just posted on social media and I wrote articles, and I was eventually in the Disability Royal Commission about it just because I put a tweet out.
Mm,
So it goes to show how much power things can have. And like,
yeah.
that went in the media a lot, and it ended up getting Qantas staff apparently trained again, or like at least an email sent out to be like,
Mm,
hey, all mobility aid damages should be fixed if it's not just a superficial scratch, for example. But if it impacts the functioning, because
Yeah.
they tried to say after it went viral, oh, it should have always went to our advocacy team and all mobility aids get fixed. But, I've had so many people approach me after that and tell me,
Mm.
no, they haven't.
Hasn't been their
So
experience.
at least
Yeah.
talking about it calls them out. It keeps them accountable,
Hmm.
and that you can get justice kind of sometimes.
Yeah. And the bottom line in all of that is, hey, take some care and don't break our mobility aids in the first place, and then we won't have to go
Mm,
down this path.
yeah, treat disabled people better and not like inanimate objects,
Yeah.
ideally.
And to
It's
understand
awful.
that a mobility aid is not just luggage that you can push and throw around,
No.
that it is actually, it is literally someone's ability to participate in their life. And if you take that away
Mm.
from them, then they can't access all the things that they need to do. But what do you think the most negative thing about having a disability is?
Hmm. There's a lot to choose from there. I mean, obviously, experiencing chronic pain is not fun. I would not wish it on anyone. Just your body is always spicy, and I I try to make jokes out of it to make myself feel better. I think you have to have a good sense of humor to live with chronic pain. But it's bad, and I often can't move, and it's really limited by life. I, you know, can't really leave my house without using mobility aids these days. It's just something I can't do. I can't often cook. I can't often clean. It's really hard to look after myself, and I put everything into my work and into my advocacy, which leaves nothing for me. Which I should really stop doing that. But I just get so frustrated with the state of the world and how every time you leave your house as a disabled person or engage with anything as a disabled person, it's always a battle. There are always issues, and then you're seen as an inconvenience or a pest because you're calling it out. Like, look, the
Mhm.
amount of people that have told me that, oh, I'm just, too sensitive or a drama queen, just looking for something to complain about. Like, no. And it's not that it affects me that I get mad, it's that it affects everyone. Like, I don't really care all that much that it affects me. Like, sure, it annoys me, but it infuriates me knowing this is an issue for all disabled people. And if it's as bad as it is for me with my privileges, it's obviously a lot bad for people without those privileges. And you know, I'm fighting for them too, or at least trying to. I may not be perfect, but I'm
Mhm.
doing my best.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like
but
you're
it's so
kind of
tired,
sticking
and
up for
you
those
lose
people that,
friends, and
yeah, that maybe don't have the ability to voice it for themselves.
all the platform
Mhm.
potentially. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you know, it's hard to get the right words, and it's hard to get people to hear you. So the fact that I have a growing platform means I can help, and I'm going to use it to
Mm.
whatever I can do. I may not be perfect, but I'm trying.
Fabulous, yeah. And anything else that you wanted to add to that negatives list? Choose your top three.
Yes. Oh gosh, it's definitely more than a top three. Ableism would probably have to be the second one. Ableism, internalized ableism, and stigmas of all kinds. And, like it took a lot for me to unlearn my internalized ableism because I kept thinking things like, oh, I'm not disabled enough to call myself disabled or to ask if my access needs to be met, or
Mm.
I'm not disabled enough to use a wheelchair, for example. But if these things help you, use them. You're
Mm.
allowed to. There's no like, oh, you have to be, you know, ordained into the disability community somehow. If you have things that impact you and you identify with the things you're saying, you're allowed to call yourself disabled. But lots of non disabled people really don't like that. Like, for example, I had someone tell me that I shouldn't post pictures in my wheelchair because it's immoral because I'm ambulatory, meaning someone that can walk as well. I just can't walk far, but saying all these horrible things and like, oh, you don't need that. And like, oh, you're not paralyzed. Why are you using a wheelchair? And it's just like, oh my God, these just
Judgment
let
of other
people live
people.
how works best for them. And
Yeah.
yeah, just like let people, you know, we can't all do the same things, especially when you have disabilities. So it's okay to do it however works best for you. And it's so frustrating that so many people don't get that. They're just like, oh, push through. Oh, work harder. Oh, just exercise your way through it or think positive. It's just like, ugh. You're like, wow, why didn't I think of that? I am cured now. Thank you very much, person with zero lived experience of my situation. um, the third thing I would say that's terrible is the lack of accessibility in everything.
Mm,
And I realize that I do often have privileges as a person who is sighted and can hear, although I do have issues with processing audio as someone with autism. You know, I pretty much never thought of like, so many things, even spaces that claim to champion diversity and inclusion really don't. Like, they don't even have basic information about accessibility, stores, locations, events, none of these things. You always have to ask. And,
mm.
they don't even know what accessibility is. Like, I was writing an article recently about accessible travel, and I was like, oh, is your shop wheelchair accessible? And they were like, oh yeah, wheelchair accessible, except you can't go through the aisles in the wheelchair. And I was like, that's not
Oh
accessible.
no.
How is that wheelchair accessible if a wheelchair can't go into that? Like, you can maybe go to the checkout, but not the. Oh my gosh! And just,
Yeah.
and that's one very basic, simple thing. So there are
Mm.
so many access needs that are being missed and not considered, um, for so many things, and just, I hate it.
And so to round it off with my last question, what do you wish that other people knew or understood about disability and medical conditions?
Oh God, so much. I wish the medical community would stop gaslighting us. I wish they would just listen to us and that our pain is valid. And, like the first time, for example, that I went to a doctor for help with my pain. She, I spoke for like 5 minutes and then she was like, oh, it's dairy. And I was like, no, it's not. She was like, yeah, it's dairy. I'm like, no. She's like, yeah. I was like, I'm vegan. It can't be dairy. I haven't had dairy in a very long time. And she was like, oh, well, it must be your weight then. No tests, no nothing. And just like, oh my God, can you at least just do the tests and listen to us? And even if you don't get it or you think it's not that bad, we wouldn't be coming to you for help if it wasn't that bad.
Mm,
We know we're not going to get listened to. We know we're going to get treated poorly. So just listen to us and help us. Like, the disabled community has been talking about these issues so much. So just literally Google it and you'll probably find something from someone and actually learn from lived experience. Like, ugh, I hate the medical gaslighting and, the ableism and the stigma and these expectations that you have to be a particular way. Like, neurotypical expectations, for example, always irk me, that they think their way of communicating is the right way and we're disordered.
mm.
Doesn't really make sense to me, to be honest. Um, but I just wish people knew, like, even if you don't have these experiences, just listen to us. Know that we are the best people to know about our own bodies and our own situation and what works for us. And if we're saying something, just listen to us and don't make us feel bad about it. Don't make us feel bad for what we're not able to do. And don't make us push past our limits, because it actually harms us and makes it longer for us to recover, which is what I've been dealing with these last couple of weeks, doing too much and then dying. So just don't be a jerk, really. That's my summary.
I love it.
I do find it funny that autistic people are often criticized for having communication issues. But, the best way to communicate with us is to be clear and direct, because we're clear and direct. And like, sometimes that's blunt, sometimes that comes across as rude. It's not.
Mm,
But like, just communicate clearly. And it's like wild that is the solution. Just like, really, guys, can you just say what you mean? And if you want us to do something, just say that. Don't expect us to know what you're saying or asking if you're not actually asking it. Like, don't get mad at us when you
mm.
haven't told us what you want us to do. Like, oh, that infuriates me so much.
So, thank you so much for spending some time with me this afternoon, Zoe. It has been amazing listening to all of the things that you do and the fact that you're just pushing through your own situation to put yourself out there to help other people, and that is just something that is a total credit to you and is remarkable in itself, because it must be exhausting. And like you've said, like you've kind of worn yourself out, yet you're still here having a conversation with me this afternoon. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to throw it back to you for one more moment for you to be able to tell everyone where they can find some more information about what you're doing and to link in with you.
Oh, cool. Well, I mean, if anyone's listening to this and wants to connect with me, I would love that. I always love meeting people or hearing that my words resonated. Or if you need a copywriter, editor, author, speaker, disability advocate, any of those things, I'm open for work. But I've got a website, www.zoesimmons.com.au. You can also just Google Zoe Simmons journalist and I should come up. But I'm also on all the socials because I have massive fear of missing out. So I'm on Twitter as @itbeginswithz. I'm on Instagram, Threads, unfortunately, and gosh, TikTok as @something beginning with Z. And then I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook, I think @Zoe Simmons Journalist or something. But yeah, it's on my website, so Googling is a good bet. But I would love to connect with anyone, especially if you're disabled or thinking you're disabled. You are valid. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to do things however you need to, and you're allowed to use mobility aids. That's my final little.
Thanks so much, Zoe. And it was a real pleasure speaking to you today.
Great, thanks so much. It was great speaking to you too.